Eat, Move, Live 52 friends. I'm here tuning in to talk a little bit about habits. It has been the theme for the whole month in our 365 community membership, and there's so much material coming up in emails and discussions and personal meetings in our online calls, and so it's kind of overflowing into the field of the whole Eat, Move, Live 52 tribe, if you want to call it that. Thank you for being here on our page and continuing to follow what we do. So one thing that has come up is how self-care habits are so incredibly basic. And it's something that kind of flies in the face of culture and kind of out there world that kind of wants to offer fancy solutions, oftentimes in the form of products or in the form of these short kind of go right for the gold program. We promise that you're gonna get to your goals right away. And then people try them, buy products, engage in these challenges, and then they come to us and they're like, well, it worked, well, I was doing it, but I can't keep doing it, right? No surprise here. And then when we look at the self-care habits that we teach, we have in the 12 habits to success on the Eat Well track, there's just these 12 simple habits. And if you look at our latest book, there's 52 of them. And we have you try one for a week and then kind of see how that sticks. And then you try another one and just see kind of what is yours, what do you want to make your own. But they're super basic. And somebody gave us a 1-star Amazon review and said that our advice was basic and weird. And we're like, yes, that's amazing, because it's basic by design and it's weird because people don't think about putting arms over their head and hanging as a part of taking care of the lymphatic system. And to some people that might look weird, and I'm totally cool with that. I like to be the weird one. But the reason why, and I have something to show you here, the reason why habits that help you take care of your body and your life essentially are so basic is because they come out of this thing that we call basic needs. And maybe you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy or some other model that tries to put into some sort of a chart or some sort of an idea, a model, a hypothesis. Why do we live the way we do? What is it that we need to thrive as human beings? And so all of this is kind of based on the idea of our basic needs. And I often show this to my students in Peace with Food, and we kind of look at it. But basic needs are anything from, the need to have shelter and the need to have access to clean water and oxygen and quality, life-giving food and nourishment, to things like positive separation and healthy relationships and the ability to have self-defense and have healthy boundaries. And so these basic needs, they're kind of across the board the same for all humans. And so then when we go about self-care, we're looking at things like hydration, time outside in the sun, looking at the sunrise, syncing your circadian rhythms, sleeping enough, having a calm sleeping environment. So when we look across the board, none of this is fancy, but none of your human needs are all that fancy either. They're basic, they're based in biology, they have developed in relation with our inner and with our outer environment. And so for those of you who have dogs or who are avid gardeners, nobody looks at their plant and says, oh, crap, my tomatoes, the stuff they need is so basic. It's just digging the soil, making sure I water them, and I have to prune them a little bit and make sure I prop them up in the cages as they get bigger. Or if you have a dog or a cat, nobody's like, man, my cat keeps eating the same thing, and I just keep buying it all this food that has protein and fat in it, and it needs a new litter. It's all very basic. It's mundane, it's repetitive, and it's just so easy to start wanting to separate from that, to separate from nature and say, oh, as humans, we're more fancy, we're more evolved, so we have different needs. So I should be different than my cat or my dog or my tomato, and my needs should be met in these more fancy ways. And so it becomes so easy to be convinced that you need, like a little powder of some sort in your water in the morning, or that you need a particular pill, or you need to wear a particular device under your sheets in your bed, because it's so easy to kind of get tricked that we need something fancy. Now, humans were very different from animals in the way that we connect and in our ability to be social. But if you go below that, if you go below the relational field, then you go below the way that we all want to grow, and kind of like if you look at Maslow's pyramid, if you go below the top floors and to the base, at the base it all tends to be the same. And just like your dog or cat or tomato would get sick if it's not getting the basic nourishment and the pH in the soil and the water and the light that it needs, same as us. So when our students come to us and we analyze daily habits, we'll literally write from wake up to going to bed, everything that somebody does throughout the day. From I wake up and I take a shower and I have a glass of water. Okay, what's in your water? And then I have a cup of coffee. Okay, how much sun do you get? How much sunlight exposure do you get? All these things, we're going to look at a whole day and we're going to see, are the basic needs met? And when they're not, instead of going for powders or supplements or something that might further down the line be used to fine-tune something, we actually teach habits. And these basic habits that we teach, they overlap. You can think of them kind of being superimposed on basic needs. So if you come in with adrenal fatigue, or you come in just exhausted and tired and wired, we're going to be looking at your sleep, at your circadian rhythms. We're going to be looking at your light rhythms. How much sun do you get, or exposure to real light do you get every day? If you come in feeling like you're overwhelmed and you just don't have time for anything, we're going to look at your positive separation, time alone, space alone, mindfulness practice, what's happening there. Because we all need time to be alone. We all need time for contemplation and to digest our daily lives. And if you come in with chronic stomach issues, we're going to be looking at what's the state of your nervous system. Are you constantly in fight or flight mode? Why? Is the way that your body dealing with life having an appropriate amount of stress response, or is it too much? So we're looking at all of these. And when you look at the habits might be things like, I want you to go out and have your morning drink in the sun, and I want you to look at the sunset, or go outside between 3:30 and 5 in the afternoon. The habits might be half an hour before bed, I want you to start winding down and journaling and looking at some time alone and some mindfulness practice. Habits might be, I would like you to have protein and vegetables at every meal, and some of the vegetables will be raw and some will be cooked. And none of this is fancy, but it's in the sustainability of a habit that we install and in the way that you integrate it into your life that it starts to meet your basic needs. Otherwise, what happens is we develop what in culture, in popular culture, we call bad habits. And think in your own life, like what's a bad habit that you have? And it might be like, oh, I just watch Netflix and, it's on repeat every night. Or it could be, I don't eat for hours and then I overeat, whatever the habit is. And so what we call bad habits is still meeting a basic need. It's attempting to meet a basic need, but it's kind of going this roundabout way that we pay tax on. So you can think of, very often we have several students that are, they're just loving being alone at night. Family goes to bed, kids go to bed, and then they're going to be watching something either on the internet or they're watching Netflix, their favorite show. And when you go deep, deep below, you find that the need that they're meeting is time alone and positive separation. So if you're meeting that in a way that you check out, there's kind of like half meeting it. You can think of like almost like a fast food version of time alone. And so then all your inner needs to attend to what you're feeling, to what you've experienced, to be with yourself, done. They're not being met because you're doing something else. Essentially, you're checking out from what's being needed to be attended to. So you can look at every what you call bad habit in your life as a way to meet a need. And oftentimes that's why it's so hard to kind of prune the habit that's not working and install the habit that's working, because you need to find the exact need that needs to be met. And then you need to work on the habit in a way that it can start to meet it in a meaningful way. And that takes some training. It might take some actual training to take a month or 2 months or 3 months to figure how it's going to work out in your life. You might be meeting your need for energy only with food, but there's other things that also can be energizing you that you need to be looking at. So really, really important. And going all the way back to where I started, we want to make sure that we don't discard the nature of habits and healthy habits, self-care habits, as being simple or being basic and thinking that we need something fancy, because the fancy stuff comes kind of at the top of the pyramid. Most of the people who are struggling in daily life, who are not feeling good, who don't have energy, who are moody, who feel like they're starting and stopping on their self-care efforts, they're really needing something more at the base of the pyramid and not the fancy stuff on top. Now, once the base is dialed down, there's plenty of wonderful professional help out there. You can do different kinds of tests and blood work and saliva tests and sleep studies and like all sorts of cool things to dial in where things might not be ideally working for you. But if you're not having sunlight and fresh air and time in nature, and you're not moving your body every day to the degree to which you're capable, and if you don't have positive separation and time alone and meaningful connection, and if you're not having positive communication and healthy boundaries and protection from harm and ability to rest and ability to grow and have creative expression, all these things that we call basic needs, if you're not meeting those, we find that it's, and if you don't have the habits in place so that your life has a rhythm and a flow where you're kind of riding with your basic needs, we find that doing all the fancy stuff at best is a nice try, and at worst, it's a huge disappointment. And where we pay tax on doing things that are kind of like fine-tuning versus really going for the base is that we don't get results. And when we don't get results, we start to doubt if our body's okay. We start to doubt if, like, am I broken? Is something off? We start to lose confidence in ourselves, in our ability to be a force of good in our own lives. And so we talk about this very openly and very directly with our students, because it's at the kind of at the base of really starting to build a right relationship with yourself, and in your self-care, being able to really make positive shifts. Super, super important. So I would love to make this a conversation. If you got through all the 12 minutes of this, just go ahead and comment below. I'm also going to put this in our discussion group in Better in a Week, and hope that people can listen and kind of come in and see what basic needs might you need to meet. And also, do you feel like you've been kind of shying away from really being steady and kind of having a sustainable way to keep habits in your life that are going to take care of the base? Or do you feel like, you kind of go for the fancy stuff up at the top of the pyramid and you kind of forget the basics? And we're here to teach basics. We've been here to teach basics since day one, since our first book, Man on Top, and we wouldn't be teaching them if they didn't work. And the reason they work is because they are meeting your biological basic needs. And it's a beautiful thing once you make peace with it, and once you start to really commit to a daily practice to take care of yourself. So thank you guys for listening, and comment below. Let me know. Have a wonderful day.